next speaker. We have now Sri Abhik Ganguly, who is going to speak on the modern revival of sannyasa with special reference to Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. Abhik Ganguly ji is a researcher. He is also contributed to INDICA's events earlier, and he has contributed through his other research articles also. He is now pursuing his research program. He has worked enormously on movements like Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement, and this is a very important topic because it is through Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement that we have a very organized and intense revival of sannyasa tradition during the modern period. Over to you, Abhik.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abhik Ganguly, and today I'm here to speak on the influence the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement had, and especially in the context of sannyasa. Across various strands of spatio-temporal cultures, such as that of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Epicureanism, Christianity, Judaism, and Stoicism, asceticism has prevailed. It is a way of life marked by giving up material pleasures, frequently in order to pursue spiritual objectives. While ascetics may choose to live in seclusion for the sake of their practices or to stay in society, they usually lead austere lives marked by giving up of a materialist life and sensual pleasures, periods of fasting, and a focus on their meditational practices. Hinduism has a long history of encouraging renunciation from worldly life and the pursuit of a spiritual life, whether as a hermit or as a member of a monastic community. Sannyasa is the name of the renouncing tradition. However, it is not to be confused with asceticism, which usually implies extreme self-denial and self-mortification practices. Sannyasa frequently advocated for a modest or non-existent materialistic lifestyle, as well as study, meditation, and moral behavior. In Hindu literature, those who adopted this lifestyle were referred to as sannyāsī, sadhu, yati, bhikshu, pravrajita, and parivrājaka. Chaturtha ashrama is a synonym for sannyasa according to the Vachaspatya and the Shabdakal Padruma. One of the ancient scriptures defines sannyasa solely in terms of Chaturtha ashrama. Though uncommon, the term sannyasa appears in the oldest Vedic literature around 2nd millennium BCE in the Samhitas, Aranyakas, and Brahmanas. It only occurs in the Hindu literature from the 1st millennium BCE, when it speaks of those who have abandoned ritual activity in favor of the non-ritualistic spiritual pursuits described in the Upanishads. It is absent from the ancient Buddhist or Jaina vocabularies. Bengal and at large India was in the throes of cultural and spiritual decadence during the late 19th century. The myth of modernity and progression came at the cost of erosion of native epistemes. Before British educational standards were implemented, the educational system in rural schools and hermitages was a way of life, not just a way of learning. Education was viewed as more than just a methodical external knowledge transfer procedure. It was believed to be an internal developmental process, a biological process. It was to be a maturation within a person's soul. This educative process in the ancient Indian system is named by the significant term brahmacharya. It is something which depends on charya, practice, or realization, and not on mere theory or intellectual apprehension of truth. Some writers did a comparative study of both the pre-colonial education system and the European education system. For example, the European writer Bartholomew compared that how the education of youth in India is much simpler and not nearly as expensive as it were in Europe. There was a noticeable advancement in learning and scholarship when education was provided in Indian languages. In the Madras province, one of the British officials noted that it is generally admitted before they attain their 13th year of their age, the Indians' acquirement in the various branches of learning are uncommonly great. Following the East India Company's political establishment in India after the Battle of Buxar in 1765, the company felt it was important to restructure the education policies. First, to promote the religion and language of the ruler. Secondly, to provide trained men for important government posts. Thirdly, to encourage learning for its own sake. The educational programs implemented in India by the British colonial government were artfully disguised to look like they would benefit the Indian community, hiding their true objectives of dominance and control. The British presented themselves as humanitarian rulers, advancing a society that was deemed backward by encouraging English education under the pretense of modernization and enlightenment. Charles Grant, a member of the Clapham sect and former missionary in India, authored a lengthy tract in 1792 arguing that the religious instruction in English was essential for local Indians. When the company charter was renewed in 1793, the tract initially had little impact on Parliament. However, in 1812 and 1813, it was reissued and extensively circulated. Grant joined the committee that the company's court of directors had established in 1808 to consult with the ministry regarding the renewal of the charter, which was set to expire in 1813. One of the missionaries said this: "The true cure of darkness is the introduction of light. The Hindus err because they are ignorant and their errors have never been fairly laid before them. The communication of our light and knowledge to them would prove the best remedy for their disorders." The 1835 creation of Macaulay's Minutes of Education, which represent the British Empire's imperialist ambitions and coordinated attempts to impose linguistic and cultural hegemony on the Indian subcontinent, is regarded as a watershed moment in Indian education history. A famous statement made by Lord Thomas Bevington Macaulay in these minutes is, "We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect." This statement encapsulates the pernicious character of colonial educationist policies, which aim to teach English language competency, whilst simultaneously instilling a Eurocentric perspective in Indian students. This ultimately led to the eradication of native languages and cultures in favor of English language proficiency. Lord Curzon, the Viceroy and also the Butcher of Bengal, who drew the first lines of partition across Bengal's map, had commented on Macaulay's onslaught. Ever since the cold breath of Macaulay's rhetoric passed over the field of Indian languages, philosophies, and textbooks, the elementary education of people in their own tongue has shriveled and pined. The fact that missionaries were not allowed to work in company territory officially until 1833 was another straightforward explanation. Domestic missionary lobbies used derogatory language to characterize Indians, such as idol worshippers and heathens, in order to garner support from the British public and put pressure on the Parliament, which subsequently put pressure on the company to grant missionaries official entry into India. During this pre-mutiny era, missionaries were forceful and inflexible due to a fresh evangelical mission, imperial expansion, self-assurance, and a desire to be let in. The rise of British power and influence globally during this time was ideologically strongly linked to the spread of Christianity. The goal of missionaries was to gain followers for their worldly empires as well as their spiritual ones. However, growing Indian nationalism in the 19th century sparked a revival of Hinduism and indigenous knowledge systems. Movements such as the Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, and the Ramakrishna Mission sought to reclaim and reassert the Indian spiritual and philosophical traditions. The Ramakrishna Mission, founded after the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna Paramhansa, was central to this revival. Born into a modest family of Brahmins in Bengal, Sri Ramakrishna received no formal Western education. Instead, he immersed himself in the devotional traditions of Hinduism, particularly the worship of goddess Kali, at the Dakshineshwar temple. His teachings focus on the universality of all religions and spiritual experiences over intellectualism, provided a counter-narrative to the colonial cultural hegemony. The Ramakrishna mission, later championed by Swami Vivekananda, played a key role in reviving India's spiritual heritage and promoting the value of native epistemes in the face of a colonial cultural onslaught. Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual journey was characterized by an eclectic practice of various religious disciplines, transcending sectarian boundaries, initially rooted in bhakti, particularly towards Lord Ram, and later towards Macaulay. His duties as a temple priest at Dakshineshwar exposed him to diverse religious practices and sadhus. These encounters led him to undergo multiple initiations into different schools of Hinduism. In 1861, the ascetic Bhairavi Brahmani introduced him to Tantra, especially the Shakta Tantra, while the Vaishnava Guru Jatadhari guided him in Vatsalya Bhava, or the attitude of a parent towards the divine child. His spiritual progression reached a critical point in 1865 when the Vedantic monk Totapuri initiated him into sannyasa, leading him to experience nirvikalpa samadhi, considered the pinnacle of non-dual realization. The tutelage between Totapuri and Sri Ramakrishna marked a significant moment in the latter's spiritual evolution, representing the integration of Advaita Vedānta into his mystical repertoire. Totapuri, a staunch non-dualist, recognized Ramakrishna's readiness for Vedantic initiation, and after Ramakrishna's symbolic renunciation of worldly attachments, began imparting the core tenet of Advaita. Central to this instruction was the notion that Brahman is the sole reality, beyond the constraints of time, space, and causality, and that the multiplicity of the world, including deities, is an illusion, or Maya. Ramakrishna, however, struggled to transcend his devotion to Kali, the Divine Mother, a deeply embedded element of his spiritual identity. Totapuri's insistence that Ramakrishna has to relinquish all attachments, even to personal forms of divinity, culminated in a decisive act of spiritual resolve, where Ramakrishna used his discrimination as a sword to overcome the vision of Kali, thus entering a profound state of non-dual realization, or samadhi. Totapuri, initially incredulous at Ramakrishna's swift attainment of this state, one which he himself had pursued for decades, remained with him for 11 months, undergoing his own transformation. Ramakrishna's openness extended beyond Hindu traditions. In 1866, he was initiated into the Sufi mystic tradition by Govinda Roy, a Hindu guru who practiced Islamic mysticism. Later, in 1873, he engaged in Christian practices, having the Bible read out to him by his disciples. His extensive engagement with these varied traditions led him to the realization of God through each path, culminating in his personal spiritual practice, wherein he remained in a state of bhava mukha, an ecstatic level of samadhi, while continuing his devotion to Kali and other religious figures. The encounter between Keshav Chandra Sen and Sri Ramakrishna on March 15, 1875, marked a pivotal moment for Sen, who was a part of the Brahmo Samaj. He was deeply moved by Ramakrishna's simplicity and spiritual profundity. In his account, Sen praised Ramakrishna as embodying the essence of a true Hindu devotee, with a spirit characterized by depth, penetration, and simplicity. He argued that Hinduism should be rooted in beauty, truth, and goodness, signaling the quite amount of influence that Ramakrishna had on him. The significant relationship between Ramakrishna and his disciple Narendranath, later known as Swami Vivekananda, began in November 1881, when they met at Surendranath Mitra's house. Initially skeptical of Ramakrishna, whom he apparently called a monomaniac, Narendranath eventually became one of his closest disciples. Ramakrishna's guidance profoundly shaped Narendranath's life, preparing him to dedicate himself to the service of humanity. After Ramakrishna's death, Vivekananda and other disciples founded the Baranagar monastery in September 1886. establishing the foundation of what would later become the Ramakrishna order. The monastic disciples were Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmanand, Swami Turyanand, Swami Abhedananda, Swami Adbhutananda, Swami Advaita Ananda, Swami Akhanda Ananda, Swami Triguna Tita Ananda Maharaj, Swami Subodh Ananda, and Swami Vijnana Ananda. After the passing of Sri Ramakrishna in August 1886, his monastic disciples faced tremendous challenges as their source of external support dwindled. Many of the household devotees who had previously provided financial assistance began to withdraw, and several disciples considered returning to a family oriented life or grihastha. In this uncertain time, it was Narendranath Datta, or as better known as Swami Vivekananda, who stepped forward and took charge of ensuring that Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual legacy would endure. Now, Vivekananda understood the necessity of finding a communal shelter for the remaining monastic disciples, and after some deliberation, they decided to make a dilapidated house in Baranagar on the outskirts of Kolkata their new home. This house belonged to a zamindar family from Taki, which, which would happen to become the first mutt or monastery of the Ramakrishna order. The early days at the Baranagar mutt were marked by austerity and hardship. With no financial backing, the monastic disciples, under the leadership of Vivekananda, adopted the life of bhikshus, holy beggars, collecting their daily sustenance through madhukari or begging for alms. This act of begging was not merely a practical necessity, but also a deeply spiritual exercise, instilling humility, detachment, and discipline. Vivekananda and his fellow disciples embraced the role of wandering monks, detached from worldly concerns and dedicated to intense spiritual practices. In his reminiscence, Swami Vivekananda spoke of those early days at Baranagar as being filled with deep spiritual fervor. Rising before dawn at 3 a.m., the disciples would engage in hours of meditation, japa, chanting of the holy names, and other forms of worship, fully absorbed in their spiritual aspirations. Despite their poverty, the monastic disciples cultivated a spirit of detachment and renunciation, inspired by the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. In January 1887, the small group of 9 disciples, including Vivekananda, took formal monastic vows at the Baranagar Math. This marked the official formation of the Ramakrishna order, which would go on to become a major spiritual movement in India. These vows represented their collective commitment to leading a life of renunciation, service, and spiritual realization. The Baranagar Mutt, though modest in its beginnings, became a powerful symbol of not only resilience but also devotion. From this humble monastery, Vivekananda and his fellow monks laid the foundation for a spiritual revolution that would transform not only their own lives but also the socio religious landscape of India. Their willingness to face hardships, challenges, live the life of a mendicant, and embrace the hardships of monastic life helped preserve the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna and laid the groundwork for the establishment of the Ramakrishna mission, which would go on to serve humanity in countless ways. The Ramakrishna order is a monastic lineage dedicated to the spiritual growth and selfless service. It originated when Ramakrishna initiated 12 close disciples into renunciation, and it is distinct from the Ramakrishna Mutt, which oversees monastic training, and the Ramakrishna Mission, which carries out charitable activities, including education, healthcare, disaster relief, and rural development. The monks of the Ramakrishna Mission belong to the Puri Sampradaya, one of the 10 Dashnami orders of monks established by Sri Adi Shankaracharya. The order reveres Shankaracharya as an incarnation of Lord Shiva, who re-established Sanatan Dharma through his teachings as outlined in his commentaries on Vedanta. Notably, the order doesn't engage in religious conversion or occult practices. Its philosophy emphasizes the harmony of all faiths, promoting interfaith dialogue and mutual respect without requiring followers to abandon their religious beliefs. The order's focus lies in fostering spiritual development while encouraging service to society. embodying Ramakrishna's teachings of religious unity and universal values. Swami Vivekananda was deeply struck by the extreme poverty and backwardness he had witnessed among the poor during his extensive journeys throughout India. He was the first religious leader in India to recognize and publicly state that the masses' neglect was the true reason behind India's decline. The millions of starving people needed food and other basic essentials immediately. They ought to be instructed in better farming practices, village industries, etc. In this setting, Vivekananda realized that the core of India's poverty issue, which had eluded social reformers in his day, which was that the oppressed people had lost hope that they might change their plight after centuries of oppression. First and foremost, they needed to start believing in themselves. This required an upliftment. The giving message of for this. Vivekananda discovered this message in the Vedantic scriptures, which teaches the idea of the Atman, or the potential divinity of the soul. He observed that the people, despite their poverty, were devoted to the religion, yet they had never been instructed in the life-giving and ennobling principles of Vedanta, or how to put them into practice. Therefore, the general public required two types of education: spiritual knowledge to build their moral sense and instill faith in themselves, and secular knowledge to improve their economic situation. The Ramakrishna Mission, founded in 1897 by Swami Vivekananda, is a central institution of this Vedanta, or Ramakrishna movement, inspired by the spiritual teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Aimed at both individual spiritual growth and service to humanity, Ramakrishna's spiritual leadership was subtle yet deliberate, shaping modern Hinduism, particularly through the reinterpretation of the Vedic scriptures. The Ramakrishna Mission's philosophy was influenced by 19th century movements as well, such as the Arya Samaj and the Brahmo Samaj, which modernized Hinduism. Ramakrishna's close interactions with Brahmo Samaj followers exposed him to their ethical and religious convictions, impacting the mission's foundation. Swami Vivekananda, following Ramakrishna's spiritual guidance, officially established the movement, although it had already begun informally during Ramakrishna's lifetime. After Ramakrishna's death in 1886, Vivekananda continued to develop the mission, which moved locations several times before finally settling in Belur, near the Ganges River in 1898. The distinction between Ramakrishna Mutt and the Ramakrishna Mission is often highlighted. Christopher Isherwood describes the Mutt as contemplative Mutt, emphasizing religious teachings and contemplation, whilst the socially active mission focuses on the socially welfare activities such as education, healthcare, and disaster relief. Both institutions, however, operate in tandem, promoting the spiritual and humanitarian ideals of Sri Ramakrishna. Sharda Devi, the spiritual consort of Sri Ramakrishna, played a pivotal role in guiding the mission after Ramakrishna's death. For 34 years, she provided spiritual leadership, further solidifying the mission's role in both religious and social spheres. Today, the Ramakrishna Mission remains a prominent institution in global Hinduism, blending spirituality with active service to humanity. Maa Sarada played a crucial role in inspiring female asceticism in India, offering a model of spiritual renunciation deeply intertwined with compassion, service, and calm resilience. Trained by Sri Ramakrishna not only in spiritual practices but also in practicalities of daily life, Sharda Devi embodied the ideals of self adjustment and endurance. Her ability to navigate complex familial and social responsibilities whilst maintaining spiritual equanimity became quite a testament to her inner renunciation. Unlike traditional male ascetics who often renounce worldly life, Sharda Devi demonstrated that the asceticism could thrive within the familial sphere, transcending its limitations through a spirit of detachment and selfless love. Sharda Devi too wanted to start a monastery for women. This came to light from the letters of Swami Shardananda written to Sarah Bull, in which he said, Sister Nivedita and myself have found, by talking to the mother, that she would like to see a convent started in the fashion of Mutt at Belur for women. Miss Glenn, who was here to visit the Holy Mother, also had a talk with the mother about it and is very sanguine about the work. Swami Vivekananda said about Maa Sarada that the mother has been born to revive Shakti in India, and making her the nucleus once more will Gargis and Maitris be born into this world. Hence, it is her mutt that I want first. Without the grace of Shakti, nothing is to be accomplished. Hence, we must first build a mutt for the mother. Though Adi Shankaracharya disapproved of women practicing sannyasa. However, among the 10 orders of the Dashnami Sampradaya, founded by Shankaracharya, Swami Vivekananda set the groundwork for women to be admitted into the Puri Sampradaya. In addition, the female sannyasins were granted the authority to grant sannyasa to other women. In the Hindu religion's modern history, this was indeed a turning point. The Sri Sharda Mutt trustees founded the Ramakrishna Sharada mission in May 1960. Whilst the mission's primary goal is service to the society, the Mutt places more focus on societal service, Jagat Hitya, and equal emphasis on spiritual development, Atmano Mokshartham. Women who adhere to this ideal are eligible to join the mission. To maintain its unique identity, minor alterations were made to the Ramakrishna Mutt symbol, designed by Swami Vivekananda. The snake and swan in Sri Sharda Mutt's emblem are facing the other way. The lotus that was in blossom received two little lotus buds. The sun has nearly fully risen. Sri Sharda Mutt and Ramakrishna Sharda Mission share the same motto, Atmano Mokshartham Jagata Hitayacha. Sri Sharda Mutt's headquarters right now is in Kolkata's Dakshineshwar, besides now having branch offices around India, Sri Lanka, and Australia. The order's sannyasins are referred to as Mataji, which means revered mother, and use the term Parivrājaka before their ordained name. Vivekananda's propagation of the Advaita Vedānta philosophy, inspired by Ramakrishna, reached international prominence when he delivered his famous speech at the Parliament of World's Religions in Chicago on September 11, 1893. The event launched the global Ramakrishna movement, with Vivekananda effectively transmitting Ramakrishna's message on spiritual unity and the practice of the four yogas. The Ramakrishna Mission and Mutt, established by his disciples, perpetuated his legacy, promoting Vedantic teachings in both the West and India. Between 1893 and 1897 and 1899 to 1902, Vivekananda lectured across America and England, spreading Ramakrishna's teachings. His admiration for his guru was encapsulated in his 1901 lectures, later compiled into the book My Master, where Vivekananda credited Ramakrishna for shaping his life's work. The echoes of a nation-building cadence of Adi Shankaracharya are also present in Vivekananda's body of work. Swami Vivekananda's philosophy parallels that of Adi Shankaracharya in both foundational Advaita Vedanta thought and the unification of diverse castes and classes within Hinduism. Vivekananda himself believed, and as he said, that Shankaracharya had caught the rhythm of the Vedas, the national cadence. Indeed, I always imagine that he had some vision such as mine when he was young, and recovered the ancient music that that way. Anyway, his whole life's work is nothing but that, the throbbing of the beauty of the Vedas and the Upanishads. He also translated Adi Shankaracharya's Nirvana Shatakam into English. Shankaracharya, who lived between 788 to 820 CE, is widely regarded as the principal architect of Advaita Vedānta, a non-dualistic philosophical system asserting the oneness of the Brahman. His contribution is encapsulated in his commentary on the Brahma Sutras, the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, and his many devotional hymns. Shankaracharya's teachings emphasize that the individual soul, Atman, and the ultimate reality, Brahman, are one and the same, encapsulated in the idea of Tattvam Asi, that thou art. Swami Vivekananda continued and expanded upon Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedānta, adapting it for modern application. He emphasized self-realization through a combination of love, service, knowledge, and meditation. He stressed that you are God yourself, you are divine. The idea of manifesting divinity within often practical Vedanta underpinned Vivekananda's belief that liberation, moksha, was not merely an intellectual recognition of Brahman, but a lived reality achieved through service and action. According to Vivekananda, the freedom lies in perfect love, service, and worship, actions that lead to spiritual and social harmony. Shankara's Advaita focused largely on the philosophical aspects of self realization, positing that one can achieve liberation through the knowledge of Brahman. Vivekananda built on this by proposing that a singular approach, such as knowledge alone, is limiting. He emphasized the synthesis of the four yogas: Karma Yoga, selfless action; Bhakti Yoga, devotion; Jnana Yoga, knowledge; and Raja Yoga, meditational practices, as a comprehensive method for attaining liberation. The Ramakrishna Mission emblem, designed by Vivekananda, symbolizes this synthesis, with wavy waters representing the Karma Yoga, the lotus for the Bhakti Yoga, the rising sun for the Jnana Yoga, and the encircling serpent for the Raja Yoga. Moreover, Vivekananda's interpretation of Advaita Vedānta transcended philosophical abstraction, transforming into a practical call for social reform. He sought to unify all the castes and the classes by emphasizing the divinity in every human being, advocating for equality across all societal divisions. His belief in Ramakrishna's concept of Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva, serving all beings as manifestation of Lord Shiva, was central to his mission of social upliftment. This notion echoes Shankaracharya's assertion of the non-dual nature of existence, but with an added focus on practical engagement with society, particularly in serving the underprivileged. While Shankara focused on the spiritual revival by emphasizing on the authority of the Vedas and the realization of the non-dual Brahman, Vivekananda widened this framework to incorporate social action and the upliftment of the downtrodden. His famous call to arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached sought to motivate individuals across all walks of life to realize their inner divinity and act in service to others. This inclusiveness paralleled Shankaracharya's work in unifying diverse strands of Hindu philosophy under the banner of Advaita. But Vivekananda extended this unification to the social fabric, transcending class distinctions. Vivekananda's spiritual influence played a crucial role in shaping Indian nationalism, intertwining the concept of self realization and national regeneration. His vision of nationalism was not just simply materialistic, but also deeply rooted in the Indian spirituality and the nation's moral foundation. Contrary to the Western conception of nationalism, which focused on secular and materialistic progress, Vivekananda's nationalism was based on India's religious and spiritual heritage. He believed that India's destiny and mission were tied to its spiritual culture, which was the source of strength for its people. As he stated, each nation has a destiny to fulfill, each nation has a message to deliver, each nation has a mission to accomplish. Therefore, we must have to understand the mission of our own race, the destiny it has to fulfill, the place it has to occupy in the march of the nations, the role with which it has to contribute to the harmony of the races. Vivekananda viewed India's revival through the lens of this spiritual regeneration, arguing that the country's advancement would arise from an understanding of its unique cultural identity, rooted in spiritualism and humanism. His philosophy encouraged the masses to break free from this self inflicted bondage and miseries that had accumulated through the colonial rule, asserting that the true freedom came through spiritual growth and not just mere political independence. This connection between spiritual freedom and nationalistic self determination was a distinctive feature of his nationalist spiritualist ideology. Furthermore, he galvanized Indian nationalism by framing the motherland as a divine entity, worthy of worship and sacrifice. His speeches and writings evoked a sense of devotion to India, encouraging people to see their daily labor, whether as peasants, fishermen, or factory workers, as a part of a larger spiritual and national mission. His call for a new India to rise from the ashes of the colonial rule resonated deeply with the country's emerging nationalist movement leaders, inspiring figures such as Sri Aurobindo and Mahatma Gandhi. Vivekananda's emphasis on spirituality as the unifying force for India's diverse religious traditions provided a foundation for the latter nationalist leaders. His influence laid the groundwork for the Indian freedom movement, where spiritual principles of ahimsa and satyagraha became tools for political resistance. The Ramakrishna Mission remains a vital institution for upholding and propagating the spiritual and cultural values imparted by Ramakrishna Mission, especially in the light of Ramakrishna Paramhansa, Maa Sarada, and Swami Vivekananda. Rooted in the philosophy of the Vedanta, which emphasizes the divinity inherent in all beings, the mission continues to embody the core principles of selfless service, universalism, and spiritual growth. These values are operationalized through various educational, medical, and social services that resonate deeply with the teachings of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, ensuring their relevance in modern society. At the heart of mission's work is its expansive network of educational institutions, which includes over 1,000 schools, colleges, universities, and vocational centers. These institutions not only impart academic knowledge but also integrate moral and spiritual teachings into their curricula, reflecting Vivekananda's belief in holistic education. He emphasized that education should not just be about the amount of information that is put into your brain, but rather it should build character, self confidence, and spiritual understanding. The focus on education as a tool for spiritual and cultural empowerment has helped the mission nurture future generations while upholding the values of equality, compassion, and self reliance. The Ramakrishna Mission's extensive medical services also demonstrate the practical application of its spiritual principles. By operating 14 hospitals, 1,616 dispensaries, and mobile medical units, the mission provides critical healthcare to underserved populations, embodying the ideal of Shiva Jnane Jiva Seva, serving all beings as forms of Lord Shiva or as manifestations of Lord Shiva. These efforts echo Swami Vivekananda's call for alleviating the suffering of the masses, particularly the poor and the marginalized, and reflect the compassionate call exemplified by Maa Sarada. Through its medical camps, eye camps, and maternity services, the mission continues to deliver healthcare with dignity and respect, fostering a sense of unity and interconnectedness, mingled with compassion. One of the most enduring aspects of Ramakrishna Mission is its relief and rehabilitation effort as well, particularly in times of disaster. Whether responding to cyclones, floods, or earthquakes, the mission's timely and organized relief operations embody the spirit of Karma Yoga, selfless action without attachment to the personal gain. Rehabilitation activities, which include the construction of houses, bridges, and schools, are a testament to the mission's commitment to serving humanity in a practical and transformative way. This aligns with Swami Vivekananda's belief that spiritual realization should manifest in everyday life through acts of service and kindness, making these efforts a living continuation of this philosophy. Furthermore, the mission's focus on rural and tribal areas further underscores its dedication to upliftment and empowerment. By providing sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and vocational training, the mission is not only addressing material needs but also enabling individuals to become self sufficient, a goal that is deeply connected to the teachings of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. In these communities, the mission's work serves as a bridge between spiritual values and modern progress, fostering a harmonious balance that is both culturally rooted as well as forward looking. With this, I'd like to conclude. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Abhik ji, for that wonderful coverage of this modern revival of Sanyasa by the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. That was a highly needed discussion for this conference. And you were also able to cover how actually a Western perspective of Indian society does not help us to understand these kinds of developments.